What's going on YouTube? Today I bring you my 2022 quarterback carousel video. This is just more for fun than anything. So yes, there's going to be like a lot of trades. There's going to be like some weird draftings or weird signings, whatever. It's all to have fun mainly. But this is also stuff that I all do see as realistic. Like I think every single thing that happens in this video does have a legit chance of happening. Is it all going to happen? Absolutely not. That'd be ridiculously accurate to get all of that. But it's just again like a fun video, like I said. It's starting out with the retirings. Ben Roethlisberger actually just did announce that this is going to be his last season as a starter. He's going to be 40 years old by next season if he were to stick around. So he's just old. He's obviously been regressing. I think they play Sunday, I'm pretty sure, will be his last game as an NFL quarterback for the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I think he tries to go out in a bang here. Maybe they make a playoff run as well, but he will be retiring. We know that for sure. I also think Ryan Fitzpatrick calls it a career. It's just obvious at this point that, he's just not the same quarterback. Like he actually got pretty solid near the end with just being that game manager, but he's old. He's just obviously not like a quarterback that you want as your starter. So I think he does call it a career. Joe Flacco, also, I think it's just maybe that time. He's still a solid backup, just old though. I just think it's time to call it a career. And then Brian Hoyer as well, same case scenario. He's still a solid backup, just a little old. I feel like he called it quits. But moving on to free agency. So it's not the best free agency market in the world this year for quarterbacks. I think the biggest name is probably going to be Jameis Winston. And to be honest, I think he resigns with New Orleans for a couple years to quarterback duel with Taysom Hill. Winston, I really did like what I saw from him before he did tear his ACL. Now let's hope it doesn't affect him going forward. But I mean, before his injury, he was playing some really good football for the Saints, and they were at a pretty high level. He was helping that offense even without Michael Thomas to some good wins. And, once he got injured, it kind of all went to crap for the Saints this year. But I liked what I saw. I think he's worthy keeping around. I mean, in this situation, I say a couple years because, maybe you want to try to go for a couple more years of seeing if he's the guy rather than just one more year, because he really does have that kind of potential still, even at 29 or whatever he is. So yeah, Jameis Winston, I think he's definitely the biggest name, and I think he sticks with New Orleans. Teddy Bridgewater, same case. He is a bigger name in this market. I think he resigns with Denver, again, 2 years. It's going to be more of a quarterback duel with Locke, though, than I think it is to necessarily start right away, especially when you consider the fact that Drew Lock has played some good football the last couple weeks. And he's definitely making a case for himself that he still deserves that shot to fight with whoever's there. But especially if it's Teddy Bridgewater, I think there's definitely a quarterback controversy there. So I think with Bridgewater, again, probably just sticks around for a couple years with Denver, see if he's the guy, even though he's not. Like, let's be honest, Teddy Bridgewater isn't the guy. I think that they'll keep him around for 2 years. Tyler Huntley is going to be a big name. I think he sticks with Baltimore. He's a restricted free agent, so I think it's really likely he gets brought back on like a 1-year contract, mainly to be traded. There's going to be teams that are looking for a guy with some supposed upside that Huntley may have, but also just who looks like a pretty reliable backup, arguably more than reliable. With Huntley, I think it's worth it. So Baltimore, just being that he's a restricted free agent, brings him back on a cheap deal, and it's most likely to trade him away. Moving on to Cam Newton, I mean, I just don't know what other team would really want him right now. He even for Carolina, he's not playing good. At the end of the day, I think a team is going to sign him, and it's going to be the Panthers. If it's not the Panthers, I truly just don't think anybody signs Cam. I mean, he was a free agent for a while for a reason. With the Panthers, where you're not sure what you're going to have with quarterback going forward. You don't know if Sam Darnold's going to be garbage again or if he's going to get hurt again. And with Newton, I mean, I just don't see anyone else picking him up. So I think the Dolphins. I think the Panthers could keep him around like a cheap 1-year deal, but definitely not anything like special. It still will be in a quarterback duel because that's just kind of the situation they're in. But I do think Panthers bring back Newton. Marcus Mariota, I think he does leave Vegas to go for a chance to start somewhere. And with a guy like Mariota, where he's shown he still has some talent and stuff, I feel like his career is probably going to end up turning into more of a career backup than anything. But before he kind of accepts that, I feel like he's going to want to try to prove he can still start at least somewhere. Maybe becomes like the Jadeveon Clowney of quarterbacks. And I think, going with the Texans, like Davis Mills has played really nicely these last few weeks, actually. He showed some really nice things. He's not like the clear starter going forward, though. So I think he signs a 1-year deal with Houston, looks to compete with Davis Mills, maybe start for them, show that he still has some talent. We'll see. Either way, I see a cheap 1-year deal in store for Mariota. Then we have Tyrod Taylor, and I think he leaves the Texans because this is a guy that I still think maybe thinks to himself he can start somewhere. And in a situation like that, I think you're going to want to go somewhere, obviously, where they also don't have a clear plan going forward. I think he's not going to want to stick around in Houston, so he does head over to the Jets on again a 1 year cheap deal. Where Zach Wilson, yeah, he's looked great. Not great. He's not looked great. He's looked better these last couple weeks, and he's still just obviously not like the. They're wanting him to be the future, but he's not the clear number one going forward. Tyrod Taylor maybe thinks he can, get a job there or something to start. So I think, quarterback duel in New York, if Joe Flacco retires, they're going to need a backup. So I have, Mike White, but whatever. We'll get Tyrod Taylor over on the Texans. Unless Joe Flacco did end his career with the Eagles. I forget if he's on the Eagles or Jets. Andy Dalton, again, just an older quarterback that's going to want to be looking somewhere where maybe he can start. I just expect a cheap 1 year contract somewhere, and I see it with the Lions. I just think he's gonna be wanting a job somewhere, and I could see the Lions offering him something. To honestly, it would still be a quarterback duel to me. I still think Dalton is decent enough to where he can potentially win a job over Goff, and that just kind of shows you where Goff is at. Which he's been better the last few weeks, but either way, it's going to be a quarterback duel. I think he just goes somewhere where they need a backup. He's a somewhat reliable backup. The Lions don't run the most complex offense in the world, so he can definitely pick it up. So, it's just another one of those veteran backup, maybe dual 1 year contracts. Nothing special here. So that was some lame free agency. Now we get into the juicy stuff, because we're moving into trade territories and we're starting it off with a banger here. And again, I don't want to hear a bunch of hate in the comments. This is for fun. This might happen. This might not happen. Aaron Rodgers, it's been pretty known for a while now that he maybe wanted to be traded. Whether he actually will or not is up for debate, but I think Denver still makes the most sense as long as he's sticking to his original wish list of Denver, Vegas, and San Francisco. San Francisco has their quarterback of the future, at least they think so. Vegas, I just don't know if you're wanting to go to Vegas over Denver. It's a really small thing as well, but the fact that his girlfriend lives in Denver is also something to point out. And just the fact that when you look at the two teams, Denver pretty objectively has a better defense, better weapons, is a pretty, I'd say, better offensive line. I just think Denver's a much more attractive option, especially when they're going to be looking for a new head coach. Well, both teams are, but again, I just feel like Denver becomes the more attractive option in that point. So in this trade, I do have Denver receiving Aaron Rodgers to start, obviously, and a 2022 fourth. In return, they're going to send Jerry Jeudy, who would start for the Packers, obviously, and that's for multiple reasons. Devontae Adams is very likely gone. They're going to need, hopefully, they're going to want some sort of young player back in the trade, especially if Aaron Rodgers does win another MVP, which it looks like he might. To me, that's Jerry Jeudy. If you give him an offensive weapon, which the Broncos already have a ton of, you're going to have to give him the cheapest option. I prefer giving Jeudy over Javonte. So for the Broncos, they're going to give away Jerry Jeudy, as well as Teddy Bridgewater, who would enter a quarterback duel with Jordan Love. I think Love would end up starting in the end, but Bridgewater can still be there to be that reliable backup, because he's definitely one of the better backups in the NFL for sure, as well as sending over a 2022 first, 2022 second, 2023 first, and a 2024 second. So Green Bay gets themselves some really nice capital here, a really nice young receiver, a good solid backup quarterback, and Denver gets their quarterback for the time being in order to really put themselves as Super Bowl favorites. Honestly, you think of a Broncos team with potentially an MVP Aaron Rodgers, that's a really scary team. So I think it makes sense for both teams if Rodgers does one out after the season. We'll see if he does or not. It might depend on whether they win a Super Bowl or not. We'll see. But I do have Denver trading for Aaron Rodgers. Moving on, another big quarterback is on the move with Russell Wilson getting traded to the New York Giants. In this situation, the Giants receive Russell Wilson to start, obviously, and Seattle receives a 2022 first, 2023 first, 2023 second, 2024 first, and 2024 third. Much more about draft capital in this situation, as I think the Seahawks would be looking to obviously enter a rebuild if they did trade away Russell Wilson, because at that point, yeah, you've got some star players, but it's just not enough to get you anywhere near competition for a Super Bowl. I don't think they'd necessarily start a fire trade or anything, but you're getting some nice draft compensation back here for what I still think is a top 10 quarterback. Now, I know Russell Wilson's obviously not been playing at the highest level this year. He started out the season really good. A lot of people might say, like, oh, he's injured, or, maybe he's injured or he's washed or whatever, you have those people. But I think at the end of the day, honestly, it's just the fact that he doesn't want to play in Seattle anymore. I mean, I think with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, it's really up for debate, like whether he's going to actually want out of Green Bay or not. For me, with Russell Wilson, there's a lot of people that think he's gonna be there, and like you're stupid if you think he's gonna be gone. And to me, I think it's pretty obvious he's gonna be gone. It just does not look like he wants to play for the Seahawks anymore. And so when that's the case, I feel like he's gonna be traded. And honestly, if Denver doesn't get Aaron Rodgers, I think Denver becomes the next most likely spot because just like with Rodgers, Russell Wilson has his own trade list, and he stated the Broncos, the Saints, or the Giants. The Saints just don't have the money for him. Denver's the ideal situation, but if they've already got Rodgers, that means the Giants become the next likely team. I don't think the Seahawks trade for Jones if that does happen. I don't think he fits their offense. I don't think you're really even looking for a quarterback that probably isn't the future for any team. So I don't see him getting traded away. More likely to be the backup to Russell Wilson. But either way, I do see Russ getting traded to the Giants. Then moving on, we have Deshaun Watson and keeping out all the legal stuff. If he wanted to play right now, he's allowed to. I mean, he's not on the exempt list. The only reason he's not playing is because of how clear he's made it he does not want to play for the Texans. Otherwise, he's allowed to play. And I'm pretty sure I even saw a statement saying, like, if he were to be traded to the Dolphins at the trade deadline, he would have been allowed to play. So it's not an issue right now of whether he can play or not. He's allowed to play, from what I've seen. That being the case, it really comes down to the fact that a team simply didn't want him with the risk it comes with that he, with the off the field issues. Now, with a team like Washington, and this is assuming that, his legal issues go away or something like that. With a team like Washington, I feel like they need that quarterback. Taylor Heineke's been fine. As we already discussed, Ryan Fitzpatrick would be retiring, and I think Taylor Heineke would be a great backup. I just don't think he's a starter for an NFL team. Getting Deshaun Watson on this team and hopefully getting that defense back to what it was a couple years ago, now you're all of a sudden in the Super Bowl conversation because you got to remember what Deshaun Watson did for the Texans a couple years ago without any help on that team. I mean, yeah, they were 3-14, but Deshaun Watson had an MVP type season. Get him on a team that actually has talent around him. You're in that conversation. So in the trade, Washington gets Deshaun Watson to start, a 2022 7th, a 2023 5th. In return, they trade to Houston a 2022 first, 2022 second, 2023 first, 2024 second, as well as Daron Payne to start on the interior for them. At that point, I think you've got yourself a really nice duo with Jonathan Greenard and Daron Payne, as well as probably getting yourself a KT or Aiden Hutchinson, making a very good defensive line as the starting pieces to a rebuild, which you're also getting some really nice draft capital in return for. I think this trade works out for both sides. Washington gets their quarterback. Houston gets their compensation for him because, yeah, you're not getting the 3 firsts in 2 seconds that you wanted, but you're getting 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a really good defensive player. So for the Texans, I think it makes sense. For Washington, it makes sense. At the time, they'd be the Washington something else's. But I think this trade is likely. Sure, I mean, Panthers, they could. I don't think they necessarily have... if they do, they're going to have to trade away some offensive weapons, and I don't know if that's necessarily worth it for Watson. With the Dolphins, I don't think they're going to trade for him. I know they were the only team interested, but I also think Tua is the future of the Dolphins. I mean, yeah, teams like Denver may be an option as well, but also if they have Rodgers, to me, it does come down to Washington, though, who I think is a good fit too beyond just compensation and where he wants to go. So I do think Watson will be traded to Washington. I want to say something else, but it's just Washington. Another trade, Jimmy Garoppolo. It's also been made pretty clear that he is on his way out. And, before the Titans game, he was playing the best football of his life. Yeah, it was not a good game against the Titans, but he was playing some really good football right before then. And with the 49ers, they've had this huge bounce back this year. They might make the playoffs. And especially if they make a playoff run with Garoppolo starting, that really ups his value. And I think this ends up becoming a really likely trade that works out for both sides, where let's say in the scenario that Jimmy Garoppolo does lead the 49ers to a divisional appearance, right? I think that makes Garoppolo's value actually really nice because he's what, 30? just entering his prime as a quarterback, has shown that he can lead a team to a Super Bowl even. Like, yeah, obviously he was mainly on the defense, but he still got them there partially. With a team like the Steelers in this case, where they're still looking to compete, right? Maybe you have a bad draft pick because maybe you make the playoffs, or even then it's still a middle of the road pick. You don't know what you're maybe getting in the draft. In this situation, Ben Roethlisberger, well, we know Ben Roethlisberger is going to retire. Your backup, I mean, Dwayne Haskins is a free agent. And even then, I wouldn't want Dwayne Haskins or Mason Rudolph starting. So when I look at all the teams in the NFL, I just don't see a team that would need a guy like Garoppolo much more than the Steelers, beyond the fact that I do think he is a good fit. I mean, I think he would work great out in this offense, and they've got weapons, they've got a defense, they've got an offensive line they're building up. I mean, I think Garoppolo keeps this team in competition, and honestly, like, I think he's a bit better than Ben Roethlisberger right now. So even an upgrade even. So I do have the 49ers in return getting a third round pick in 2023, but it's conditional. And the condition is that if Jimmy G starts at least 13 games for the Steelers in 2022, it turns into a second round pick. And I think that's good compensation for a team that's looking to get their starting quarterback, which, yeah, you don't necessarily know entirely what you're getting, but for a team that's going to be desperate like the Steelers, I think it makes a lot of sense. And so San Francisco gets a nice pick in return for Jimmy Garoppolo. Moving on, we had the Baltimore Ravens re-signing Tyler Huntley, and it was for the situation. I mean, yeah, sure, 2022 fourth, 2023 sixth. It's not the best compensation in the world, but it's better than letting him go for nothing. And I think with Tyler Huntley, I think a team like the Falcons makes sense, where you're maybe looking for a guy potentially for the future, but at the very least a solid backup, but maybe someone that can step in, because you don't know what Matt Ryan, what he may play like next year. I mean, he's getting older, and we're already seeing a decline from him. I think it'd be good to have a backup that you can feel somewhat reliable on, just in case. And you don't know if you're going to be in a position to draft a quarterback this year that could start for you. So I think Tyler Huntley makes a lot of sense for the Falcons, who in turn send a couple picks back to the Baltimore Ravens. And then moving on, our last trade is going to be a Gardner Minshew trade, who's going to be on the move again. I think some team is going to be wanting to trade for Minshew, looking at him as a potential starter, probably a solid backup. And in this situation, I have it being the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield is having a really tough time right now, and that's a little scary if you're a Browns fan. I mean, I think at the very least, Gardner Minshew gives you some pretty safe backup play. I mean, Gardner Minshew should be a starter, in my opinion. I definitely think he'd be a starter on a lot of teams in the NFL. And so if you're the Eagles, if you're not going to start a guy that has a lot of value to a lot of other teams, why not trade him? So in this case, it's a conditional fourth round pick, 2023 again, that turns into a third if Gardner Minshew plays basically 1/3 or more of total offensive snaps for the Browns. So it's basically the situation of if he does end up playing a good amount of offensive snaps for the Browns, it turns into a third round pick for the Eagles. Otherwise, though, with Cleveland, I mean, you're looking at Minshew as, again, safe backup play in case Mayfield, I cannot talk. In case Mayfield does decline some more, he gets hurt, whatever, but also potentially as a guy in the future, because Baker's just kind of on that kind of a slide right now, and you got to be at least somewhat prepared for that. I think Case Keenum is a backup. Either way, I mean, he's not the best backup in the world, so I do have the Browns trading for Gardner Minshew. So then moving on past our trades and free agency, we're now going to be looking forward to the draft. And starting off, the first quarterback I have taken off the board is my quarterback number one. Definitely an unpopular opinion. I have Kenny Pickett going to the Seattle Seahawks with the 5th pick they received from the Russell Wilson trade. Obviously, if you're trading away Russell Wilson, you're looking to start your rebuild. And when you have the 5th pick overall and you're shot to get the best quarterback in the draft, in my opinion, I think they take it. He's going in there to probably start over Geno Smith, who we don't know if he'll resign with Seattle or not. But either way, probably going in there to start. And I don't want to talk too much about Kenny Pickett because I really want to save that more for the draft rankings videos and stuff. But Kenny Pickett is a guy that I think a lot of people are sleeping on way, 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 way too hard. It's becoming popular to have him in first-round conversations, but again, I have him going number 5 overall. If you look at Kenny Pickett, the literal only thing you can you can really nab him on is that, yeah, he doesn't have the most elite arm in the NFL, and his hands are small. And I get it. That's a legit concern, right? He wears gloves. His hands are small compared to the normal quarterback. They said the same thing about Joe Burrow. Kenny Pickett's hands is like an inch smaller. Here's the thing, though, right? If you have a ruler next to you, like I have one right in front of me here, right? It's hard to show. Maybe I'll put one on the screen. Maybe I won't. If you have a ruler next to you, or if you can even just imagine, a normal quarterback's hands apparently, and again, this is just from what I read, apparently are around 10 to 11 inches. So from the base of your wrist to the top of your middle finger, the average quarterback's hand size is about 10 inches. Kenny Pickett's is 8 inches. From what I read, again, maybe this is incorrect, and maybe I'm saying some wrong bullcrap right now, but from what I read, Kenny Pickett has 8-inch hands. Yeah, that's smaller than the average quarterback. Those are not small hands. They're not. So for me, it's like, yeah, I get he wears gloves, but like I said, beyond that, there is nothing to nab this guy on. He has solid mechanics, solid processing time. He's actually a very good athletic quarterback. He does have nice arm strength. It's not elite, but he has nice arm strength. I just don't see that much to nab him on besides his hand size. They said the same thing about Joe Burrow, and I'm just not going to nab him that much. If he didn't have that hand size, he'd be the perfect quarterback. To me, that's just what it is. So I have him being taken 5th overall by the Seahawks for hopefully their future. Moving on, the Panthers at pick number 7. I was really considering giving them an offensive lineman. Instead, I did go with Matt Corral, who to a lot of people is quarterback number 1 in this class. He's my quarterback number 2. I do think he's a very solid prospect. He's a very athletic quarterback. I mean, he's basically Taylor Heineke, except just with a higher floor. And so with the Panthers, like, yeah, you've got Darnell Newton. Both suck, though, and neither one's probably going to be your future going forward. You're taking Corral here to quarterback battle with the 2. Maybe he comes out on top, we'll see. But either way, he's the future for the Panthers, who need themselves an actual quarterback for the future because they cannot let this good young team that they have go to waste. Moving on with the Steelers at 15, do luck out and grab themselves Carson Strong. Now, this is a guy that people are a little divided on because while he's great, there's also some, talk about he has a pretty big issue. I'm pretty sure it's with his ankle. It's his leg somewhere, but I'm pretty sure it's his ankle that he had to get surgery on, I'm pretty sure. Beyond the injury, the dude's a great quarterback. I mean, he's basically the Tom Brady of this class, where he has some really underrated arm strength and is a great processor. The dude can stand in the pocket and just deliver those throws, and very accurately at that. And he has some underrated pocket. He moves in the pocket very well and just is still always able to step up and make that throw. His knock on him is that, yeah, he's not athletic. He's not going to run on you like a lot of these other quarterbacks like Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray or stuff. But he's such a good quarterback in the pocket to where it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I think the Steelers jump on that opportunity. I think it's a good fit with the Steelers. And, if Jimmy Garoppolo can kind of even develop him a bit more. But, I mean, I think you enter a quarterback battle with Garoppolo and you put yourself in a good situation where either way you're going to end up with a pretty good quarterback to start this year for you, with Carson Strong having some nice upside as well to turn into a top 10 quarterback someday and, really put you right back where you were with a prime Big Ben. So, for the Steelers, I think it makes sense. I get that there's issues with his ankle, which is why he may fall. But for the Steelers, I think they hop on the opportunity, put themselves in a good situation at quarterback. Moving on, we have the Lions, who take Sam Howell in the 2nd round. He does fall out of the 2nd round. And yes, I know there's one guy where you're all thinking, where is he? We'll get to him. I think they take Sam Howell. He is my quarterback number 4. And to be honest, I think he's become a little underrated. I would still take him in the 1st round. He didn't end up going in the 1st round for me, but I think if a team's in need of a quarterback and he's there, I think that this is a perfectly good player to take. I mean, he was great at UNC when he actually had weapons and was still a very good underrated player even when he got all those weapons stripped away from him. And I think with the Lions, like I said, like Goff is not your quarterback of the future. Andy Dalton's obviously not your quarterback of the future. So he's also going to be entering a quarterback battle here, but you're, again, putting yourself in a somewhat good situation where if you had Goff and Dalton, someone's going to rise on top and give you the better starter. With Sam Howell now as well, maybe he gives you the best starter, which it would be great, but at the very least, you're going to have a really solid, good quarterback, which for a lot of people was quarterback 1 or 2 at the beginning of the year and still has a lot of those good traits that he had at the beginning of the year. And I think you put yourself in, once again, a good situation where hopefully you've got someone good to start for you this year, but potentially even your quarterback of the future with Sam Howell, who, again, has become pretty underrated throughout the year. And getting him in the second round would still be a great steal for the Lions. Moving on, you can stop shouting. And Malik Willis finally goes in the second round at 37th overall to the Texans. I'm not very high on Malik Willis in terms of a lot of other people. Some people view him as quarterback 1. Some people think he's a top 10 quarterback. I've just never been high on these, you know, low floor, high ceiling quarterbacks. It was the same thing with Justin Fields. It was the same thing with Josh Allen. If Josh Allen didn't have Brian DeBoll, I quite honestly just don't think he turns into the quarterback he is right now. And with Justin Fields, again, like I did a coaching carousel video if you want to go check that out. But my ideal target coach for the Bears is Brian DeBoll so he can develop Justin Fields into a good quarterback. Otherwise, I just think he's going to turn into a bust. And it's the same situation with Malik Willis where, yeah, he's got some insane upside. He's easily got the most upside of any quarterback in this class. He makes some great plays. I love his mobility. He's got a cannon for an arm. I mean, it was very much a Trey Lance 2.0 situation. I didn't see what I wanted to see from him this year at Liberty, and I was really hoping against some lesser competition for the most part that he would at least be able to show me that he is a good, accurate, consistent quarterback, and I just don't feel like he did that for me against lesser competition. So I do worry about how he transitions to the NFL. I definitely think he needs a better coaching staff in order to give him that chance to really become a top 10 quarterback, which is his potential. Unfortunately, in this mock draft, he goes to the Texans, which is the absolute most unideal spot for a guy like Willis, except I don't think the Texans would pass up this kind of value and opportunity at this point. He's once again going to quarterback battle with Mariota and Mills. And once again, you're putting yourself in a good situation where out of these 3 guys who all have still nice upside and nice play in them, you're going to find somebody who's going to give you solid play this year. And at the very least, I mean, 2 of these guys could turn into long-term answers. And Malik Willis, extreme upside. I just don't think the Texans would get it out of him, but that's where he ended up going in this mock draft. So unfortunate for Willis. I don't think he would hit on his anything if he did go to the Texans. It depends on what team he goes for me. Same thing with Justin Fields. But we'll see. Either way, this would end up probably being a bad pick for the Texans, but they just couldn't pass up on the value. And then the last quarterback that could start potentially is the New Orleans Saints taking Desmond Ridder. I have a guy who has this guy as his number 1 quarterback in the class, and to be honest, I don't see that. I think that Desmond Ridder has it's a weird thing to say because a lot of times, maybe a receiver gets made by his quarterback. In this case, I think Desmond Ridder was made by Alec Pierce as well as Luke Fickell. I mean, yeah, he's a good quarterback. I mean, he's got some nice arm strength. He's got some nice mobility to him. He navigates the pocket fine. That's the thing for me is that he's pretty okay at pretty much everything except for his accuracy because this guy just makes some bad throws sometimes. And, it's something that you'd hope he would have evolved a bit more this year at Cincinnati, and he really just didn't because I liked the move of him coming back one more year because I thought he could, fix his accuracy issues and, go make a playoff run potentially. And they are in the playoffs, so who knows? There's still 2 more games for Cincinnati left to play potentially. But, he just didn't fix that accuracy issue, unfortunately. And so with that, I think he has moved himself up into the second round conversation. He's my quarterback number 6. And I think a team like the Saints would be willing to pick him up. You're going to quarterback battle with Winston and Hill. Hill's not a quarterback. I've been saying that for a while, but he's still going to be competing with Winston. And we already talked about Winston. But at the end of the day, the Saints really don't know if either of those guys are going to be their long-term option at quarterback. Ian Book did not look good. And I mean, you shouldn't have been expecting anything from Ian Book. But with the Saints, who, they've shown that both these guys, they struggle staying healthy, and they're a team that just cannot, they have a tough time winning games when their offense isn't going. And, maybe it takes getting a 4th quarterback on the roster Maybe he's your third if Winston leaves, but whatever. Ritter, he's a guy that, yeah, he has upside. He is a solid quarterback, and I think he'll be a solid backup in the NFL. And maybe that's all the Saints really need in this kind of situation. Is he worth the pick at that point? No, but you are also banking on the potential that he does possess. So overall, I mean, I think with Ritter, it's a worth pick. It's a worthwhile pick here for the Saints. It makes sense to me, and I think he does fit. He kind of gives me a few Drew Brees vibes, but way less accurate. But overall, I do have the Saints taking Desmond Ritter as my last draft quarterback. The other thing here is just some other signings, not worth talking a ton about, but Mitch Trubisky to the Buccaneers, I think he can kind of have a little duel with Trask, see who's more of a worthwhile guy to develop with Brady, still starting. Jacoby Brissett to the 49ers, they wouldn't have a backup if Jimmy Garoppolo left, so I think getting him as a backup to Lance. Geno Smith resigning with Seattle, but still probably going to be the backup. I mean, he'd enter a quarterback battle for sure, but he'd probably end up being the backup. Nick Foles to the Colts, mainly to battle Ellinger as their backup, but also the Frank Reich connection and all that. So, and Carson Wentz. Colt McCoy to Jacksonville. They're going to need a backup, and he's proven to be a pretty good backup this year. So, just in case Lawrence completely craps the bed again next year, you got yourself a pretty good backup option. And then Chad Henne resigning with the Chiefs. 1 more year backup Mahomes, but those are just some other smaller signings. So moving on, last but not least, we do have just the overall view of each division's quarterbacks. And, like we said earlier, Aaron Rodgers to Denver makes this a very, very good competitive division. And especially at quarterback, you've got yourself some extremely good quarterbacks in this division. Seeing Rodgers versus Herbert twice a year, Rodgers versus Carr, Rodgers versus Mahomes, obviously the biggest one, would be very fun to watch. So that'd be great for Denver. Texans obviously got, like a three-way battle going on over there. Otherwise, the rest of the AFC South staying unchanged. AFC East, mostly the same, except for Tyrod Taylor, going over there to kind of battle with Wilson, but Wilson likely remaining the starter, so not much of a change here. AFC North, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson staying here, but Gardner right on Baker's trail, and the Steelers with two new faces. I think Garoppolo would end up being the starter at the start of the season. I could definitely see Carson Strong, starting at some point during the season, though, especially since Garoppolo has injury issues at times. So Steelers with a couple new faces, but Garoppolo's starting in the end of it. NFC West, we have Trey Lance taking the place of Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously. Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray still there, and then a new face in Seattle with Kenny Pickett, looking to hopefully start that Seahawks rebuild off good. Then moving on to the NFC South, Tyler Huntley, potentially could start at points behind Matt Ryan, but still would be the backup, obviously. Over with the Panthers, I do think Matt Corral would end up starting. I think he'd be good enough to start over Darnold and Newton. Definitely Newton, but Darnold's more of the issue, is does he start over Darnold? I think at the start of the season he does. The Saints also got a bit of a three-way battle there. I mean, I definitely think Ritter would be the backup in this situation, but probably would start if Winston does have similar injury issues again. Brady still starting for the Buccaneers, obviously. In the NFC East, you can debate in the comments if you want. What would be a better quarterback division? The AFC West with Rodgers, Mahomes, Carr, and Herbert, or the NFC East with Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson? Arguably 3 top 5 quarterbacks, for sure top 10 guys in the same division. That'd be pretty insane for 4 teams that would become really competitive with each other. So that'd be a great division for quarterbacks. And then last but not least, the NFC North, Justin Fields is still the starter. Lions with a bit of a 3-way battle. I do think Dalton probably comes out as the 3rd string. Howell as a backup, really to more develop a bit over time while Goff is there. Packers, Jordan Love would start at first, but Teddy Bridgewater, he's there as the backup if needed, but also could start if Love doesn't really turn out in his first year as a starter. And then Kirk Cousins still starting for the Vikings. But that is going to be my, again, just for fun, 2022 quarterback carousel video. Let me know what you guys think down below. Maybe you guys get traded to different teams. Maybe the draft goes differently. Maybe you guys sign elsewhere. There could be all kinds of fun possibilities for where these guys end up. But if you did like the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.